So the first thing that I would want to ask, or if we can discuss about, it's in the form of a question that how do we create a school culture, and especially me being an international student of having come to Finland, and I can see how the Finnish culture gets transacted into the classroom, or how that culture is being built. Well, so far I have very limited experience of with the teaching practice I have had, but I think you, having been through that Finnish schools and university, so probably from the perspective of a teacher, if you could share a little bit about it, I think, yeah, that would be nice.
The interesting fact about like creating the school culture is I think it is very unproblematized and unthought of, unreflected in a sense in the Finnish culture. It sort of just happens. And if you would ask a Finnish teacher, they wouldn't be able to tell you like, why is it that the Finnish school culture or the classroom culture looks the way it does? And also realizing that the school culture is something different from the classroom culture.
Yeah.
Like one of my favorite pieces of research here in Finland is Hansén and Aspfors 2016 or 2015, where they interviewed newly qualified teachers in Finland, and that means 4 years in the field after having gotten their exams done. And what they found was that the Finnish teachers, like it became a donut, like they created this image where like the middle part of the donut was like a very, very small hole. And that they called the classroom arena. And then around it was like this huge big circle, which they called the school arena. And they realized that, and this was to depict what the student or the newly qualified teachers, NQTs, what they kind of thought about, like what did they feel were problems when they started working. And the interesting part was that they didn't experience any problems with the classroom arena because they were educated to deal with those things, like what happens in the classroom and how do you deal with students and learning overall. However, the big donut thing, that was the school arena. And that's where kind of Swedish and Finnish teachers felt like they had most problems because they didn't know how to deal with like relationships with the principal or with colleagues or with parents or with like competing school happenings that kind of take time from teaching and stuff like that. And so like for me, like there's a distinct difference between like the school as a culture and then the classroom as a culture. And in Finland, like we teachers, we have like supreme academic freedom. Like we can do whatever we want to in the classroom. Like there are no bodies looking at what we're doing and there's no one checking on us and there's like nothing. Like unless like students contact the school and are like, oh, teacher Björkel is now doing weird things, like there's really no one to kind of monitor what you're doing. And that's weird.
Well, I think it has both sides, I would say, because obviously when you let go of people, okay, you can do whatever you want, you have that space. I think I, as a teacher, I would also struggle with that. But at the same time, if there is somebody to always monitor your actions, what are you doing? How is the learning happening? I think that's also like a bit like very, I don't know, intimidating for me as well, like when I think of it. But I think it's like, I think that was the question. I think at some point I did raise this in the class as well, like how would teachers then get feedback? Like, I think that's like something very, um, I don't know, like I think that's something to think about, I would say.
Like they don't.
Yeah,
And like what I can see
yeah,
from the field as well is that some
yeah,
teachers don't evolve in Finland. Like
yeah,
they learn to do something by, I don't know, like
yeah.
taking part themselves. So like I usually have my teacher students question a lot, like
Mm,
especially the Finnish ones, like question, why are
mm,
we doing this the way we have always done it? Like this
mm,
simple example, like I had a teacher the other day, Pia Maria Valkeakari at the
mm,
practice school, and she was
yeah,
like, I don't know, like, have you noticed as a language teacher that we always do this thing where we have like reading the text,
Yeah.
translating, underlining, then
Yeah.
working with the vocabulary afterwards, and then reading some theory that's
Yeah.
sort of in the text and in the
Yeah.
vocabulary, and then
Yeah.
doing the exercises.
Yeah.
And then she said, like, I have practiced something and it has been like revolutionizing. And I was like, oh,
Yeah.
tell me all about it. What have you been practicing that's so
Mm.
revolutionizing? And she
Yeah.
goes, I start with the vocabulary. And if it's a
Oh.
text about food, I work with the vocabulary first on food, and then whatever
Mm.
else is in there in the vocabulary. But we
Okay.
practice pronunciation, we practice
Okay.
like
Yeah.
meaning, like the Swedish equivalent, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And then when we've done that, like a lot,
Yeah.
then we move over to the theory part. And the theory is usually based off of the vocabulary in the text. So
Mhm.
since we've worked on the vocabulary, the students know that. So we can
Mm.
still do the exercises in the grammar section.
Okay.
And
Okay.
she said, and last, during that session, I go to the text. And then when I ask
Okay.
the question, who wants to read out loud? Everyone, like beginner, fourth grade learners of English,
Okay. Okay.
like they want to speak because
Okay.
they know how to
Okay.
pronounce things, they know what they mean.
Okay.
And so all of the
Okay.
kind of unsureties that are present if you would
Yeah.
start with an unknown text are gone.
Okay. 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 Yeah. 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 That's quite interesting. And because it, I think, yes, on one side, the teacher himself or herself figures out a way to, okay, how do I make my teaching learning process in a better way? Also, there's something recently, because we did this as our one of a project on collaborative teaching. So I think when 2 or 3 teachers work together, so that could be also like one way of how you share your learnings, and how to make it better, so as you had mentioned just now. So I think, yeah, that's like one of the different ways I think we can work in a better way. Yeah. Yeah.
And in Finland, we're also moving a little bit away. And I don't know if this is a good or bad thing, but we're moving a little
Hmm.
bit away from like individual teachers teaching and more in teacher
Yeah.
teams or
Yeah. Yeah.
joined classes or even joined grades,
Yeah. Yeah.
multi-grade classes and stuff like
Mm.
that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, the multigrade reminded me, like at least in India. So this is the scenario. Well, there is a systemic challenge in India. It's that sometimes, in at least in public school context that I'm saying, there are times when the number of teachers are insufficient. Like the number of teachers who are assigned in a school would be less. So what usually happens is, with the existing number of teachers, what they usually do is, like, they sometimes combine the classes. So sometimes like third and fourth graders are together, first and second graders are together, and then your fifth graders, or like sixth graders are together. So that's kind of a combination that sometimes teachers work with. So yes, working in group has its own challenges, definitely. But I think, yeah, you like, okay, as a teacher, eventually you figure out, okay, what strategy would work when you are teaching. And it's also like, this has been a major learning, that no matter how much ever theories you learn, in your teacher education process, it's all about when you actually start doing it, you have to figure out your way, what works out for you. Like, so yeah, I think that's been something I can
And I
say.
just listened to Brad Blandon, perhaps
Okay.
is his name, yesterday.
Yeah.
He teaches radical honesty. And so he goes, all theories are bullshit. And what you need to figure out that some theories work better than other theories, and they're all just kind of a coat rack to hang your coat on, and sometimes it sticks better and
Yeah.
sometimes it
Yeah.
doesn't really stick. And so he said, you just have to figure out like what you
Yeah.
want to work.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.